Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another video in our vehicle construction time-lapse tutorial series. We really should have thought of a shorter name than that. Nevertheless, I'll show you exactly how I construct a particular vehicle so that you can follow my footsteps, or perhaps simply get inspired to create something of your own, in which case never forget to share your creation with us via our Discord channel or any social media you desire. Nevertheless, I do need to paste my usual disclaimer here, by which I mean that everything you see here is still in development. Currently, Dieselpunk Wars, at the time of the recording, is live on a Kickstarter, and we're trying to enrich it with more features, so if you have any questions regarding Dieselpunk Wars itself, feel free to check out our Kickstarter campaign for more details. Nevertheless, keep in mind that everything you see here is subject to change and that nothing is final. And without further ado, I'd like to get started on our vehicle for today, which is going to be rather massive. My goal is to create the most devastating and resistant vehicle I've done thus far. Something that can ride on the ground, soar through the skies, and even dive underwater. Whether or not I'll be able to actually succeed in creating such a vehicle will be determined, as it's not going to be an easy task for sure. Nevertheless, let us get started. Obviously, I do want to protect my core module, so this time around, like with our first vehicle, I'm going to surround it by harmless modules such as cooling module, crew compartments, and liquid fuel tanks. Now that I've created a bit of a gap between my command module and other modules, I can start placing down my engines, diesel engines of course. This is Dieselpunk after all. I will need a lot of them because my vehicle is going to use a ton of different types of propulsion, and for that I'll need a lot of power and a lot of fuel and a lot of crew to man everything, especially crew, since the crew is also going to man the guns. So I'm going to create a ginormous block filled with just the most utilitarian of features. I'll also input a few gyroscopes here and there. I'll need more of them later on. For now, this is going to be good enough. Now that this is done, I'm going to create some kind of baseline for our means of propulsion on the ground and on the water. I envision a catamaran sort of vehicle, so this is going to be quite stable, probably difficult to turn, but quite stable, and stability is what I'm after for this particular build. So I'll create rather expansive sets of tracks on the sides of the vehicle, as well as some extra actual turnable wheels that will hopefully allow me to turn a little bit better. Keep in mind, this vehicle is still going to be a nightmare to control, but I'll do my best to actually make it controllable somewhat. Next up, it's all about adding the means of propulsion on the water. For that reason, I'll add not only just the regular sea propellers, but also seaside propellers near the front of the ship to hopefully try to make it easier to turn. I'll also add the subfloaters to allow my vehicle to actually submerge. Considering how incredibly heavy the final result is going to be, I think a bunch of subfloaters is going to be more than enough to actually be capable of submerging. Next up is creating something that will allow me to achieve liftoff. I'll need an absolute ton of gas floaters for that particular reason, because for that particular task rather, since this vehicle, it's gonna be very, very difficult to lift, and I don't want to use too much engine power to lift it, so I'll try not to use the vertical propellers. It'll just be the air balloons. So in true Dieselpunk fashion, we're going to create an airship. So I'll just put a metric ton of those, and after that is done, I'll create the basic hideout for my ammo storage. So I decided to keep my ammo in the back of the vehicle in order to make sure that it's very difficult to hit it. I'll also add a little bit of ammo on the sides of the vehicle beneath the hot air balloons, and that's where, well, that's not really hot air balloons, that's just hydrogen balloons, I imagine. Nevertheless, that's where I'll add backup ammo cans. I'll make sure they're not too close to all of my other means of propulsion, of course. I'll need also to add some extra means of turning and twisting in the air and also accelerating, so that's where the air propellers come in handy, as well as the air side propellers, which will hopefully allow my vehicle to turn somewhat. And after all this is done and finished, it's all about the guns. For guns, I'm just going to go for a metric ton of armor-piercing rounds, with the idea that I won't really need to have explosive rounds as long as I have enough armor-piercing rounds. So I am basically ready to destroy the Earth itself with this many guns, but I'm just getting started. I'll add even more guns. And of course, while this vehicle is going to be very devastating when facing an enemy head-on, it will possibly be somewhat susceptible to air attacks, so I'll also add some turrets at the top of the vehicle to deal with more agile flyers. Now, I also want to have my vehicle somewhat effective against any enemies that come from the side, so I'll also add a bunch of smaller guns. They're not armor-piercing or explosive or anything of the sort. They are somewhat armor-piercing, but don't expect them to work wonders for you against armor targets. Nevertheless, they will be just fine for this particular reason, or rather task. And once I'm stock full on guns pretty much everywhere, I still have a bit of crew left over, so I can still add some more extra guns, but I'll do that later. For now, I'll just finish working on the proper shape of the vehicle, make sure that it's somewhat-ish aerodynamic. Of course, keep in mind that aerodynamicness for this kind of vehicle is pretty much an alien concept, but the more aerodynamic I make it, the more likely it is going to actually to be able to move, because it's going to be very, very difficult to move it from the spot, I can assure you that. So trying to give it somewhat of an aerodynamic look is going to be quite important. Once I have enough space at the top of the vehicle, I can add some extra turrets to make sure that this vehicle can even better protect itself against the flyers. And once that is done, I'll reassign all of my turrets to different control groups. And the reason is fairly simple. I, as a single person, cannot possibly control this many turrets. I could try, but this would most likely end up being a waste. So I'll assign most of these turrets to an AI, which is going to automatically aim them at the nearest enemy. And I'll just keep the big dual-barreled guns at the front for myself. Everything else is going to be AI controlled. And with that, all I have left is to make some small adjustments in regards of the balloons themselves, making sure they're more aerodynamic, and that's pretty much it. I won't really bother with a paint job this time around. It's all about making sure that this vehicle can actually fly and move around and whatnot, and make sure it can steer as well, because I did forget to add steers. And once that is done, it's pretty much a good vehicle, honestly. It will need some extra spotting modules, so I'll add them too, because I do want to be able to see my enemies. That's going to be rather important. And it's ready! Let's see if it's actually capable of fighting and winning against overwhelming enemy forces. That there are no doubts about Youtubus Flexus's might and power in combat. It would take a considerable amount of effort to stop it, which is why I created a considerable amount of opponents. There are 2 flying vehicles for my enemies. There are 2 amphibious tanks, 3 actually if you count the sea monster, and 2 regular sized ships. All of these are very formidable on their own, and I'm going to go ahead and fight all of them at the same time. This is not a free-for-all, this is just me going against all of those enemies. It's going to be the toughest fight yet, but I believe I can win it. Let's find out. As you can see, I'm already in combat, and I'm immediately attacked by the Death Cloud, which thinks it can possibly fight me. Well, I'll prove it wrong. As soon as it flies anywhere near, my anti-air is tearing it to pieces. Meanwhile, I'm going to open fire on those ships that my enemies possess, and I don't think they're much long for this world, as I'm going to tear them up to pieces. Now, I am flying a little bit too fast forward, so I'll try to slow down a little bit and also potentially try to hit the water. Oh boy, a lot of things exploded. My PC is having a difficult time handling all of this awesomeness and explosions, but as you can see, everything around us is exploding. My turrets are firing non-stop, and they are not done yet. More ships are exploding all around us. The Poseidon's Bident is still functional from what I can see, but oh, there we go. I can move again. Excellent. Let's go ahead and keep firing upon the enemy right over there. Okay, it looks like ship of the line. It has seen better days for sure. Very, very good. And I'm almost okay, I ran aground. This is not ideal for our ship. I had too much momentum, you see. It was difficult not to make this happen, but nevertheless, I'm still firing. My ship is still one piece against so many enemies. I can barely detect them, you see, because I keep losing my spotting modules, but I'm trying my damnedest to keep hitting them whenever possible. And now I started to submerge, but I cannot submerge, not yet. My turrets, thankfully, can still fire up on the enemy as I desperately try to turn and gain some height. There we go, there we go. We're moving on to the enemies. Oh, almost got up, but unfortunately I let go of my controls for a second. But there we go, I'm gaining some momentum. Almost was able to lift off, but that is no matter for us right now, as I was actually able to take down the wave crasher quite easily. Alright, time to actually start flying upwards, because I cannot afford to stay dead in the water like this. But the enemy ships are being torn asunder one by one. There are very few enemies left, I believe. Let's go ahead and speed up a little bit and try to see the other enemies. As you can see, the wave skipper decided not to fight us, but that is okay. If it is too cowardly to fight us, I can always try to fight it myself. Oh, there goes the miniature airship bomber. I was wondering where it went. Alright, let's go ahead and use this island to actually stop ourselves, because my vehicle is way too big to actually cease moving on its own. And there we go, I can fire upon this wave skipper again. It's actually surprisingly still up. I must be missing it somewhat, or at least hitting it from an ineffective angle. But there we go, a few more shots and it should be gone, hopefully. There we go, more shots. Man, it's really difficult to destroy such a small target, as you can see. But I will not yield, nor will I back down. Oh, I see what the problem is. I'm basically almost out of ammo. In fact, I am out of ammo right now. I spent it all. I spent all of my ammunition. I have nothing left. Well, thankfully in Dieselpunk Wars, ammunition does restock itself, although very slowly. But because of how many ammo blocks I do have, this should be more than enough to finish the enemy off, hopefully. But for the most part, I believe I have proven this ship's worth. It could use a little bit more ammo, so I'll definitely include that observation when I redesign it in the future. But for now, as you can see, pretty much all of my enemies are gutted and dead in the water. Some still partially functional, sure, but basically they're no longer a threat to us. The wave skipper is still swimming about, but I doubt it's going to be able to do much else from this point forward, as it is clearly just flooding in the water. So that's about it. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed my build. It was a unique one for sure, but I had fun with it. I still cannot destroy this wave skipper, it's still up and about. But nevertheless, thank you very much for watching. If you have any more questions about Dieselpunk Wars, then please by all means check out its Kickstarter campaign if it's still live at the time this video goes up. And also visit our Discord group as well as any of our social media to learn more about the game and talk with some of our other players. Thank you for watching, and I wish you good luck in all of the battles to come.